What's up, Flip Factor family? This is Michael Green with the Flip Factor podcast, the number one podcast dedicated to teaching you how to find and win high profit flips and manage your contractors so you can make more money and have tons of freedom so you can do whatever the F you want. Today, I'm going to share with you how long work should take, the exact time it should take to do each job. So now I'm not going to be able to tell you guys so many different jobs, but we're going to get into an overall science you can use to start gaining an understanding of it so you know when your contractor's taking too long or he's actually getting done pretty quickly, right? That way we're on the same page. Also, I got Delante D'Souza. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he is my awesome partner on the show. He comes on all the time, more than I like. We talked about him being a squatter and, well, cool squatter, man. You couldn't have a better guy to squat with.
Part of that offers value, I think, it's a good thing. You got the
Exactly.
squatters that don't do anything and they just kind of like breathe your air and just like, you know what I mean? But there's a squatting situation where you're like, all right, we get some podcasts off the way. Cool
Exactly. Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. This is not like Delante is not like a crackhead, like sleeping naked in a house with three naked women that are on drugs. That's not him, man. He is definitely bringing value, and all the listeners love you and thank you for it, man. We appreciate it. So today we want to jump in, man. I know you had some questions. He brings some great questions from like social media, different students, different people he talks to on the phone who are interested in getting in the program. We love to share the answers with you versus just giving them to one person. We share them on the podcast, and you guys can get some great value from it. We're still talking about construction because we're on this big kick of being construction thing. We're going this super deep dive, taking it to a level that I've not seen anyone take it at. And I have to tell you, since we've decided to make this adjustment about 9 months ago, becoming masters of construction, getting really detailed about our processes and our systems, our net profit on our flips has been skyrocketing. And in this last year, the year of 2019, and it's gone so quickly. I feel like we're 10 months in, but no, we're a whole year past it. The year 2019, I've had more big winning homes that have made so much profit, and it's directly related 100% to being better at getting done on time and on budget. Like, there's so much money lost in flips when you work with your contractors. This is part of what our series right now we're going through is talking about how to reel that in, how to get more profitable, how to cut the stress down, and how to get it done faster so you can flip more houses. So Delante, you got some cool questions. Jump right in, man. I appreciate it.
Basically, I've heard this a lot from calls with, people who are, some students who join our program, some who just want to get some coaching advice. And a lot of times on the Facebook group, right, they have this wildly varying timeline for, work getting done in their projects. So like they'll say a $40,000 renovation took them 6 months to complete, 8 months to complete. How do you know exactly how long work should take for your flips?
I think there's two answers to that, right? So we can give you the general system we use to know if we're going pretty quick. If you're spending $10,000 a week in overall construction money properly at our standardized pricing, not overpaying people, because obviously you could spend a lot more every week if you're overpaying. But if you're paying the standardized prices we put together and you are getting about $10,000 worth of work done every week, you're going pretty quick, right? So that means an $80,000 renovation would take 8 weeks. So, 40,000 would be 4 weeks. I consider that expert level speed. That's the speed we're running at right now. Sometimes we're a little bit slower than that, but most of the time we're right around there. But however, if we're to consider more of an intermediate beginner speed, would be spending like only 5,000 a week. So meaning like a 40K renovation takes 8 weeks. Not bad, but you're still a flipper, but you're losing a little bit of your competitive edge. And when you get down to where you're only spending a couple thousand a week, or you have weeks where you spent nothing, that's actually a big, big no-no. That's going to be a big, hard thing you want to get rid of, because the only time you're going to have like weeks or 2 weeks where you're not spending anything is when you have bad contractors that aren't committing to your job. Maybe they're doing your house and some other person's house, and they're kind of putting a guy there for a day and then coming back, and your house is empty for 3 days. A big part of our strategy and why we're able to get these things done and have a lot of controls, we always have a lot of people in our house. So we believe in the man-hour equation, right? Every man or woman, whatever it might be, but we call it man hours. Right? So every 8 hours a day, somebody's in there working efficiently, getting work done, represents another little step forward to getting finished. So if we can put 3 people in a house, that's pretty awesome. If we can put 6 people in there, it's amazing. We even did a 7-day flip where we did 45K renovation in 7 days. And the manpower equation that we figured out that worked was 21 people in the house for 7 days got 45K done. So there is an actual equation for this that people are going quickly. So this is the overall how long it takes to do a house like in general. But there's a lot of little pieces because you won't usually be hiring a GC. You'll be hiring a lot of different subs and different people. So the question mark is you got to understand overall how long it takes to do each job. Because see, you won't be sabotaged by one person. It'll be many people taking too long, or maybe one person taking forever. You need to know when people are getting way past what would be the standard time to do something for two reasons. One being, if they're taking longer than they should, they won't be profitable, which is bad for you and them because we want them to be profitable so that way they can make money. We love when our contractors make a lot of money. People have heard me say that and they're like, that don't make sense. Of course it does. If my contractor is efficient, they can take my standardized pricing and crush it. We've got guys working for us that make 150, 200K a year as a contractor, and they got consistent work. They don't have any expenses. They show up in their vehicle, they work hard, and they're making great livings, right? And we love that. We're happy for that to happen. But a lot of people make the assumption that they're making 150K, 200K a year because I'm paying them too much. No, I'm actually paying a very fair price. They just are really good at doing the work. I put the challenge on them. Instead of me paying them more, I let that be their journey to figure out. Like, they got to figure out how to go faster. And see, subcontractors are naturally better at figuring out how to do a unit of work faster because that's how they get raises. So if they can take a 3-day job and then over a couple months fine tune their skills and start doing that same 3-day job in 2 days, next thing you know, you're still paying them the same rate of maybe $2,000. Next thing you know, they're making more money. Right. And now they've gotten more profitable. They just got an awesome raise. So it is about efficiencies with people. So when we talk about how long should it take to do each job? Well, we got some different equations for that, but we always think like how many guys, how many days, right? So if somebody's in there working hard, how many guys, how many days? Like if you're framing a basement, it's like 2 guys for 2 days. Right? If you're putting in a floor, it's like 400 square feet, like a living room, dining room, kitchen for hardwood, 2 guys, 2 days usually, right? You can get in pretty quick. If you're doing waterproofing in a basement, 3 guys for 3 days, maybe 3.5 days. Putting on a roof, like a couple guys for a day to 2 days tops, depending on how bad the roof is. But the thing is, we're not worried if it takes them 2 days or 1 day. That's within the realm of being awesome. It's when it takes them 2 weeks. Because see, people don't take too long because they're slow. They take too long because they're not likely on your job. So when we talk about how long somebody should take, just know that there is standardized work time that every job should have. And you need to understand that in your business. A big part of what the done for you stuff that we create and help everyone build out customized to their business in our training and consulting program that we have is we help them create how long should every job take so they can instantly weed out bad contractors by just saying, hey, Delonte, how long does it take you to paint a house? How many guys do you have? How many do you have, Delonte? Is it 3?
Yeah.
Cool. How long do you think it'll take you to do it?
3 days.
3 days. Guess what? Delonte just got hired. That's pretty solid. I know if he can do it in 3 days, and he's like legitimately can do that. And he seemed pretty confident when he said it, even though I know actually you did paint a house in 3 days, didn't you? Him and Rashad, old acquisitions guy, Rashad and him, and then Tanya, who works with me now, the 3 of them painted a house in about 3 days, man. So and you guys are not professional painters. They were just learning painting. They had a sprayer. The house was done. Wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. And you guys did it in 3 days. So I would expect that a professional painter can do it. With that being said, we've seen people that don't do it in 3 days, usually because they're not using the same tech. Delonte had an advantage. He was using the most efficient techniques with a sprayer. He was definitely doing it the right way. And just because he knew that, and I taught it to him because I had learned it from some amazing painters. Like, I'm no ninja. I'm no genius. I just pay attention. If I see somebody knock something out quick, I'm taking notes like, oh, how did they do it? The main reason is because then if I have other people in my crew that are maybe taking 3 days instead of 2, and I can give them that one tip, I know that's going to give them a better chance of staying with me. Because see, if now they can do it in 2, all of a sudden the pay I'm giving them has gotten better. I just gave them a raise. I'm like, Merry Christmas, here's a raise. You're going to make more money in the standardized pricing I've created. But it does require them challenging how fast or slow they are and getting better over time. We've proven many times that you can do a lot of stuff we say. Sometimes we even proven it personally, right, Delonte? We've got out the sprayer, did it ourselves, and it's kind of funny. We put cabinets in. Remember, we did one of our trainings in field with the group. Nobody knew anything, and we had cabinets installed in 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was fun, right? So you can do it. And then we've had people tell us they need to pay $950 to do that. Like, that's a lot of money for a couple hours work for 2 people. I mean, in general, if somebody wants to make good money and they're getting paid $400 or $500, that's great money for like, a half day to a day's work for 2 people, in my opinion, at least. But, I know there's a lot of people willing to work for that price and be very happy about it.
I mean, we talked about the standardized pricing and kind of, how many guys, how many days, that whole sort of concept. What are some key things that you actually do to make sure your flips stay on timeline? Actual things that you do in your flips or in your business to kind of make sure things are going at the pace they need to go.
If I had to kind of summarize that and make it simple, I call it a verbal upfront contract. I mean, I get verbal upfront contracts like Delonte. So you're saying 3 days for sure. Have you done that before? Yeah, we'll role play. So go ahead and give it to him, Delonte. You're super
Oh
role
yeah,
play.
yeah.
Delonte is now a painter. Can you channel back into the painter that did a house in 3 days? Thank you, man. Like we were prepping you for this podcast. That way you knew one day you use that skill to be like a podcast star. So Delonte, you said you can paint the house in 3 days. I mean, you're for sure you can do that, right?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, cool. I mean, now have you worked with investors before? Or is this like the first one time you work with someone like me?
Now I've worked with investors before. I worked with a couple of investors, around the area. So
Okay, cool. And it always takes you about 3 days. You ever get it done sooner?
usually it takes me about 3 days with 3 guys. I have three
Okay.
guys on my crew, and typically we get it done in 3 days. Houses are a little bit smaller. We get it done in about 2.5.
Okay. So
But
never really more than three though.
yeah, never more than 3.
Okay,
That's kind of
cool.
our max.
And obviously, we're paying you a standard rate on this. You said you were happy with it, $2K to paint this whole house and do everything, cut it in. And then you also, if it takes you 4 or 5 days, though, that's on you. Do you think there's any risk of that? Because I wouldn't want you not making money.
Not that I can see now. I think, me and my guys, we can knock this out in 3 days for sure.
Awesome. So if I was having that conversation in real life with Delonte, I'd feel very confident in hiring him because you see, I've tested a few things just to see. Now, when someone's not so certain and they're just throwing a number out there, you wouldn't hear the level of confidence that Delonte has. Obviously, I believe Delonte has that confidence. Like really, seriously, I know he's role playing on a podcast, but he's actually done it in 3 days. So he's legitimately talking from experience. And you could tell that in his voice. You could hear it in the way he was confident. And also, I would say, even if somehow it did take 4 days, he pretty much tied himself into the commitment. So if he was going to take longer, a lot of times, what you'll see is like they might work later, they might work harder to keep their commitment. The last question I would ask Delonte is like, hey man, so when can you start? And when you start, will you stay on the job until you complete? And that way that's how I help stop things from getting over schedule. See, when things go over schedule, it's usually 2 reasons. One is someone just didn't show up. That happens. We can't really, until we get our great team around us, that's going to happen. That's part of why it's hard for people when they're new to be at that pace of like, 40K renovation taking 4 weeks because they're going to have some bumps in the road. With that being said, the second way it happens, and this is the thing we can completely control, is we get a painter comes in, he starts one day with 3 guys, and the next day, like one guy comes back, it looks like it's his nephew who nobody likes, and he just dropped them off there to try to look like, and then come back the next day and it's like some random dude who has like one eye is like painting the windows and stuff, and then there's nobody for 2 days, and he's like, well, my truck broke down, and I gotta get a new tire, right? And then it's like next thing you know, like 7-8 days later, and what he's doing, he's probably jumping between jobs and stuff, right? So we always want to make sure that we work with people who are like, no, when I start, I'm going to finish, right? Because some people don't like think that way. I know when I used to be a sub, I would start it and finish it. Right? I wouldn't go to another job until I finished the first job. Yeah, you don't go to chapter 2 until chapter 1's complete. And people understand that. We want to work with people that think that way. That's how you can consistently get things done on time, because you'll know, okay, they're going to start today and they're going to finish, within a day or two of this time. Because a day or two doesn't kill us. It's when people are playing mind games with us for like 2 weeks. And I've seen people take 2 weeks to paint a house.
I guess my last question, Mike, is like, let's just say you're in a rehab, you're in the midst of doing a renovation, and you didn't have these tips to kind of guide you in the process. What do you do in situations where you are behind timeline or you're behind, in your renovation? How do you catch up? Like, what can you do to catch up on your rehab and kind of get things back on track?
I mean, this is such a complicated answer, but I mean, the reality of this is when you are way out of whack in your rehab, which most people are, it's taking too long. What you're going to find when you dive into the numbers, when you're taking too long, you're always over budget. I can tell you, I've done over 1,000 flips, and anytime my houses have taken too long, they've been over budget. So I know that if things are taking too long, that money is being milked from me. And the main reason that happens is because when you get into this place where you feel like you're very impatient, you tend to start paying for things to happen. Oh, this guy just wants 500 more, go ahead and hire him so we can get it done. Right? You start feeling this pressure to overpay instead of getting it right and getting your stuff really dialed in and locked in. The next thing you know, you've done it across like all these little line items, and you're 10, 15K over budget in way over timeline, which means your holding cost money's over budget. And, you haven't gotten your money back to flip your next house. So there's a huge downside to it. So what I would say when you get to a place where you're not getting done quickly, your guys are just not good, you got to have like abundance. abundance. You got to have this ability to go out and find 6 people that'll do the job, start bringing them in, start bringing more manpower in. I start taking jobs away from people I've already hired to do it if they're not doing it. And I say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna let you do this half of the job. Like if they're painting the inside of the outside of the house and they're taking forever to paint the inside, I'll hire someone to paint the outside and take it from them. And while they're painting the outside, if they flutter out on the inside and I can't find them, I have the outside kind come in and paint. I'm hedging my bets essentially because I don't want to rely on someone who's already being unreliable. So I believe instead of like waiting on one person and just hoping they're going to get better, and because see, they give you all these excuses, but the reality of people in this world is you either have reasons or you have results. So is your painters, your contractor, are they giving you results or are they giving you reasons? If you find they're giving you reasons, you're going to have to introduce some other people to kind of hedge your bets and protect yourself because that's just the way it is. Now, if they're honoring your agreement, that's different. You won't ever have to do this. But if most contractors are really big on testing boundaries, the boundary I love to be real clear about is if you don't get done on time, I'm probably going to fire you. And if not, I'm totally going to get someone else to start doing like part of what I've already hired you for and tell you because I can't wait on you either way. Like I can't wait more than a day or two. I'm always very generous with a couple days or a little bit of time. But when it starts to get out of whack, like I'm talking like 2 weeks to paint, I can't afford that. At that pace, it could take me 8-9 months to do a flip. You know, that's just going to lead to bad times, right? It's going to lead to tax deductions at the end of the year for losses. Bad investments that didn't come back. I don't like that. I don't mind a tax deduction here and there, but I don't want to be my cash that got sucked out of a rehab because some contractor was running around with like a bunch of excuses and reasons.
Well, I think that's all I got as far as seeing work and how long it should take on your flips. I mean, I think that was very comprehensive. So rule of thumb, expert level flipping is about 10K a week, 7,500, 5K, 7,500 sounds like the average, but a couple thousand red flags coming up. Sounds like.
Lots of money, by the way. So we didn't talk much about this and we'll kind of jump in right to where he ends us. But the bottom line is in your construction, like I've seen people not willing to hire a coach for 5 or 10K that are losing 5 to 10K on every flip. And knowing that pain could go away and the reversal of that could happen where instead of spending just 5 or 10K once and never having the problem again and like every year putting 50 to 60K more back in your pocket and doing that for the rest of your life, I've seen people just like, oh, I don't want to pay a coach. I can figure this out. And honestly, when I say I've seen people, I really should just be like, okay, this is what I did when I was new. Like I paid a coach to teach me to find deals. He was my first coach and I paid like 15K and he was very good at teaching me to find deals. He didn't really know anything about construction. So I was left to figure that out on my own. It took me about 4.5 years before I brought the first person in to teach me about some construction. And he just gave me some basic stuff. And it wasn't until I hired my E-Myth coach that I work with today that me and him for the last 3.5 years, and I pay about $36,000 a year for that expense. And me and him have been working on these systems nonstop, just dialing them in, testing them, getting them better. So I'm investing a lot of money in making this great. But if I look at maybe I've spent over 100K on it, I mean, I've saved way more than that. Probably in 6 months, I've made way more than 100K in the savings that I'm not spending, wasting my money. And then the sanity that I've gotten back, I don't even think you can put a price on that. You know, the fact that I can work 15 hours a week, flip homes, I feel completely like, you know, there's no reason I wouldn't flip houses forever because I've made it more easy and fun. All right. But when I wasn't willing to invest into a coach and into these systems, to be honest with you, I don't know. I was almost quit about 4 years ago. And I was like, dude, this is too much. It's like really hard. I was like 6-7 years in and I'd done a lot of flips and a lot of volume, but man, I had to just grind it out on every single flip. And it was because I had that negative pool of money just sinking out of my ship, you know, going right, you know, just going down a toilet essentially with all the inefficiencies with contractors. So this is the reason we're so pumped about it on the podcast. We're doing cracking the contractor code. I think if you're going to flip or you're currently flipping, there's no more powerful area than understanding how to estimate repairs, how to hire people, how to get the work done on time, on budget. There's just nothing more important than that past finding your deal, right? But finding your deal is one piece of it. Then you got to actually like, you spend usually a couple weeks to a month finding a deal. You spend a couple months actually doing the work to make sure you actually bring that profit home. So for me, that's some awesome stuff. I want to also, if anyone's listening, you guys like this, we're going to continue talking a lot about construction because of how important it is and sharing a lot of tips and tricks and different things we're using in our business every day, making sure that, you know, we can get these great results. We'll keep sharing them and giving you a lot of great content. So Flip Factor family, I want to say that I appreciate you spending the time. I know there's a lot of flipping shows out there. I don't believe there's too many talking about construction. So if this is your pain, hang hang around. I'm going to give you a lot more good stuff because I want to make sure that you get as much value from this podcast. I really appreciate you guys. I consider you to be family. We love you guys. We love all the great comments you've been giving us, cool people saying, hey, we really appreciate what you're doing. This is the reason me and Delonte spend the time to do this, and we share because, we love that feedback. So thank you for that. If you haven't went on iTunes and, kind of given us a 5-star, we'd really appreciate that. It means a lot to us. It kind of helps give us the fuel to make sure other people are seeing this and that we can keep doing the show. So with that being said, thank you everyone for checking out the show. My name is Michael Green. My work is done and yours has just begun. Stay awesome, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you, Delonte, for coming on the show.